contents of this message, but it is more than sure that the Libyan regime is asking the Maltese government to intervene on the European Union table as they meet as the foreign ministers on Thursday, that's tomorrow, and on Friday at level of heads of government. Now, we know that yesterday the European Union senior diplomats have met to decide on the sanctions which had to be broadened, and then they were agreed. So therefore, now we have an escalating diplomatic situation where Gaddafi seems to be seeking his friends in the sense of who was closest most, both in commercial and political ties, so that he can find a solution to the situation he finds himself in.
OK, Carlos Navarra, thank you very much indeed for that update there from Malta. Well, let's speak now to José Felipe Moraes Cabral. He's Portugal's ambassador to the UN, and he's going to be the chair of the Security Council's Libya Sanctions Committee. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. Now, those sanctions that the UN Security Council announced are in place. Have they had any impact so far?
Well, we hope they have impact, and we hope that this impact is very quick one. We are here now organizing the work of the committee. We hope to meet early next week. We have been in contact with the Secretariat, with other colleagues from other missions in the Security Council, and we will have our first meeting, as I said, early next week, and then we will proceed from there with a working program, working methods, criteria, and all the rest. And I'll have to report to the Security Council within 3 weeks, more or less.
Now, you'll be plugged into all the other sort of efforts there are at the UN level. How much progress is being made on potentially getting UN agreement on a no-fly zone?
Well, there's nothing on the table yet. For the moment, we are concentrating on implementing the sanctions that have been decided by the Security Council. If and when such a proposal is on the table, we'll discuss it, of course. But
what about the sense of urgency? I mean, we've seen today that aerial strikes are continuing. We've heard from one of our correspondents that hospitals are struggling to cope with patients because they don't have any water because their water supply has been bombed. Is there a sense of urgency that at the UN level there should be a no-fly zone?
Well, there is a general sense of urgency for the violence to stop. That's obvious, and we will do whatever it's deemed appropriate for this. To have this effect. But as I told you, for the moment, there is no proposal on the no-fly zone. There are no proposals on extra sanctions, and if they are, and the Council considers they're the right way to proceed, we'll obviously approve a new package.
Interesting that, I mean, amongst the sanctions, there's no sort of, obviously there's a travel ban for the Gaddafi family, but his planes have still been able to fly, and he seems to have sent out diplomatic missions, as far as we understand it. We've had confirmation from Catherine Ashton at the EU that there are Libyan diplomats in Brussels now trying to talk to them. So what can the UN do in this context?
No, I heard your report, and from Malta too. The people that have a travel ban are the ones listed on the annex to the resolution. The resolution has two annexes. One that it lists the people that are limited in their traveling, and the other list has the names of the people to which a freezing of assets will be applied. So as long as someone is not in this list... What do you make
of the fact that there is this diplomatic mission, aside from whether or not the travel bans? I mean, what I'm getting at is, what can the UN do, given that there does seem to be now a diplomatic push coming from Libya?
Well, it seems from what I've just heard your reports on the matter, what seems to me is that there is this attempt on behalf of the Libyan establishment to reach out and to establish contact, bilateral contacts, with a number of European countries and with Baroness Ashton in Brussels. I think this is, or maybe, a positive indication. It may be also an indication that sanctions are becoming effective.
OK, thank you very much indeed, José Felipe Moraes Cabral, for talking to us. Well, pro-democracy protesters in Yemen remain defiant, this despite the killing of at least one protester in the capital on Tuesday night. Security forces opened fire on protesters outside Sana'a University. At least 75 people were injured. Hashim Al reports from Sana'a.
Security beefed up around the university square. Fury building in the aftermath of the deadly assault by security forces on these protesters. Spent ammunition and tear gas canisters litter the ground. The government says its act was prompted by the discovery of a cache of weapons. Allegations dismissed by the students who erected tents in this square, which has become the epicenter of the pro-democracy movement.
It was organised crime. Groups of security forces came from all directions and armed soldiers were positioned on the roofs of buildings. They started firing on us. It was followed by volleys of shots. It's a crime against humanity.
Violence is spreading across the country. In the province of Dhamar, a President Saleh stronghold, loyalists are seen here attacking the protesters despite the presence of security forces. Government pledges to stop the violence fail to deter loyalists armed with weapons, batons and daggers, spreading fear across the country. The ongoing attacks spurred these tribal leaders in the province of Marib to denounce President Saleh and join the protesters in their fight for a change in Yemen. Marib is home to most of Yemen's oil fields.
Mr. President, don't treat your people like Gaddafi. Mr. Saleh, don't disgrace your legacy. We implore you to leave Yemen and let the Yemenis decide their future.
For the time being, the embattled president clings to power. He has called for a national forum on Thursday to seek a peaceful solution to Yemen's deepening crisis. But the crisis isn't showing any signs of relenting. Parts of the country appear to be slipping beyond the control of the government, and the protesters reject calls for dialogue with President Saleh still in power. Hashim Al, AlJazeera, Sana'a.
The death toll from Tuesday night's clashes between Muslims and Christians in Cairo has risen to 13 people from both sides. 140 were wounded. The violence has prompted further protests by Coptic Christians in Egypt's capital, Cairo. More than 1,000 Copts were demonstrating on Tuesday against the torching of a church when violence broke out. Egypt's Prosecutor General has launched an investigation into clashes. A suicide bomber struck a funeral attended by anti-Taliban fighters in northwestern Pakistan. 37 people were killed, and the Taliban says it was responsible. We'll have more on that in a few moments. And Hindus in the US state of California want yoga to be recognized as a tradition and not a craze.